have a look at CloudHub 2 and Flex gateways. I'll install them locally. And the point of today is to show how the quota is being shared between the instances of the gateway. It's not that obvious, and we'll make it clear today. So we'll start with CloudHub 2. I have a small API already deployed, but let me show it. It's very simple, so I'll use Postman app. Right, we'll call an API on CloudHub 2. It already has 4 replicas. I'll show how it's configured. Right, we'll check the policy configured for the API, and it will be calling Postman echo just to see what's coming back. Let's see how it's set up. So here's the API, right? We'll use this one. It is already has a policy, rate limiting, as I mentioned. And this rate limiting is SLA based. So let's look at the SLA. It will use a basic tier, which is configured with 5 requests within 15 seconds. Right. So for example, if we look at the shared quota, we would expect the API, whenever we use it, right, to guarantee these 5 requests within 15 seconds. Let's see whether this works. To have a look at the policy, how it's configured. So we've already configured the policy as distributed, meaning when runtimes are interconnected, the quota is shared among all nodes. So that's our premise. And right, if we look at the runtime, this is where it's running. I already have 4 replicas. And so we'll see the API hitting each of those. Due to the internal round robin, which is done in CloudHub 2. So, right, they've done it for us. We don't have to do anything. And let's just see how it works. Right, so this is the URL. I'll call it without any caching. So, well, we'll just add a random parameter here to prevent caching. I will disable keep alive connections because I don't want the HTTP session to stick to a single replica, but I want the round robin to really do its work. And right, so we said we expect maximum 5 requests within 15 seconds. So let's do the 5 requests. We'll just send gets. And right, we will see some logging. For example, here in the headers, we can already see, right, so we have a rate limit of 5. For remaining, it will reset in 9 seconds. And now let's just continue hitting it. So now it will reset to 5 again, right? And we expect just 5 requests within 15 seconds. Oh, and I have a small counter. Let's reset the counter. It will tell us when we'll be getting the HTTP 429, right? Saying that our quota is exhausted, right? So let's hit 1, 2. I'll just continue hitting till we get no more requests, right? So here, quota is exceeded. Let's see how many did we get. We hit 11. So as we can see, the expectation was that we can already do 5 requests, but this time it was 11. Right, and we can see if we look back at what the rate limiting was returning to us. So here we can see 5. All right, so this is already exhausted. Right, here it was 3, 4, 1, 2. So as we can see, it's not consistent, right? So 3, 2, 1, and then suddenly 4, right? Without any reset. And X rate limit reset is different. So this is the time between when this rate limit window will reset. And what this tells us, it tells us that each replica of our API is handling the rate limit separately. So, right, we can hit 11. Sometimes it could be 30, right? It really depends which node, so which replica are you gonna hit first with your request. And it doesn't right, it doesn't respect our the limit of 5 which we wanted to set. So in order for this to work on CloudHub 2, we have it's really easy. So all we have to do, we have to create a cluster from our replicas. It's this option here during the deployment. So let's click apply, and the point is it's actually the same logic as was with CloudHub 1 or with on-premise. So the policies are able to share their quotas as long as you have a cluster of mule applications. Creating a cluster on CloudHub 1 was not possible. So there you would have to do other workarounds, like, for example, putting a proxy in front of all your APIs. With on-premise or runtime fabric installations, it was possible to create a cluster. So writing these environments, these kind of policies with shared quotas would work. We will wait a little bit till all the replicas are updated. And we can view the status. Here they are. So, right, CloudHub 2 for us is currently creating a cluster from all these 4 replicas. And internally, it will use Hazelcast in order to share the information between the runtimes, including the quotas for the policies. So let's wait a little bit while it's deploying. And while this is done, let's have a look at the second setup, which we'll test today. And the second setup consists of, so there will be a different API. We will deploy that API. It will be just a proxy to Postman Echo. We'll use 2 Flex Gateway replicas. So I have 2 VMs where these are running. We will deploy an API with the same rate limit of 5 requests within 15 seconds onto this Flex Gateway. And I will have a small local mule application used as a load balancer. Right, so it will round robin between these 2 replicas. And we will also verify whether the global shared quotas is respected. And then later on, we'll connect these Flex gateways to Redis, right, and see what this changes. All right, so let's check what's our deployment doing. And we have 4 replicas now started as a cluster. All right, so now that we have a cluster, let's test it again and see how it behaves. Let's reset our counter. Right, and here we are. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. As we can see, the 6th attempt within the rate limit window is being respected. So that's exactly what we wanted, right? So this tells us when we have a cluster, right, all the replicas, so all the policies on all the replicas behave as expected altogether, and they have a shared state for the policy, which right then calculates the limits. So that's it for CloudHub 2. It's really easy to use distributed policies, right? We just have to have multiple replicas running in a cluster, and the policy itself, of course, has to be checked as distributed in here, right? So if I disable this checkbox, right, the policies will be standalone, and so the rate limiting will be standalone as well, despite having a cluster, right? So both options have to be enabled for the policy to be respected. All right, now let's have a look at the Flex Gateway. So as mentioned before, we have 2 Flex Gateways and a mule application locally and a Redis. Right, we'll first check it without Redis. So Flex Gateways, I need to start them. That will be 1. That will be the second Flex Gateway. And as mentioned, I have a small API locally, which, so right, it will listen on 8081 and will just proxy the request in round robin fashion to these 2 Flex Gateways locally, and both these Flex Gateways will forward further to Postman. which is what we want, right? So let's see the API, which is deployed on this Flex gateways. That is this one. So, right, it's inactive. Okay, now it's active. Perfect. So here we also have an SLA tier with the same configuration of 5 requests within 15 seconds. We have a policy, rate limiting, SLA based. Right. It's distributed and it's exposing headers so that we can test it. So I did nothing. I just started two Flex Gateway instances without any specific configuration, right? And let's see how the policy behaves in this setup. Right, I need to start this guy as well. While it's starting in Postman, this will be this request. So, right, very similar kind of setup. We are going to send requests and then verify the headers. And we'll count them, right? Here also underneath, we will be able to see the logs like to which Flex gateway the request went. Let's just test that it's working. It does. You can see the logs. Something has been sent, returned. So, right. And we have the rate limit, remaining requests. So let's see what we expect, right? We have a distributed policy. We expect 5 requests within 15 seconds. So let's go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 14. Okay, so let's see. Okay, I forgot to reset the counter, but I was somewhere at 14, right? When no, right. So we were somewhere at 14 when it reset to 4 to 9. We can do it again just to make sure that our tests are clean. Let's go and let's right, 1, 2, 3, 4. Mhm. Okay, so we could see we were able to make 11 attempts before we got 4 to 9. Again, this is not the 5 we expected, right? This is much more. And the reason is the very same reason. The Flex gateways are separate instances. They do not talk to each other. So the rate limiting policy quotas are standalone in each of these instances and they do not talk to each other. So they cannot share the quotas and right, despite the policy being distributed, like being configured as distributed, they don't talk to each other. So it's not doable. The fix is rather easy. Well, it's supposed to be rather easy. So let's do that. What the documentation tells us, right? So we need to configure a shared storage for the Flex gateways, right? It's supposed to be Redis in production. And once we have the shared storage configured, the Flex gateways will kind of automatically talk to each other. So let's do that. I've already prepared the configuration for the Redis. It looks like this. So let's rename it to YAML. Will be one, right? So internally, it just says, right, so for the Flex Gateway configure shared storage, it's a Redis. Here's the address. And we will see I have a third VM where Redis is running. I will use database 0. Let's first configure the second one as well. Oh, no. Press name. Getting done. Let's start it. And let's also start this one. So, right, these YAML files are already mapped to Flex Gateway configurations. And here is actually the third VM where Redis is already running. As we can see, this is DB0. Currently, right, there are no keys in it. And what we will see, hopefully, then, so now Flex gateways should have a shared storage, and this will enable them to apply shared rate limit quotas to policies which are configured as distributed. So let's see that is working. The same setup here. And let's go. Let's, I don't know, shall we count? Let's reset the counter. Counter reset. This is this one. And go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And as we can see, attempt number 6 gets us a too many request response, which is as expected. Meaning once we have configured Redis as a shared storage between the Flex gateways, they do use it, right? We can even see it here. So this is the Redis. We search for the keys. We can see some keys were created. And this one is actually, right, it's having somewhere, actually haven't looked inside, right, but it's having exactly the information. So what's the quota for this request? And then it's been reset once upon a time. So, right, that's basically it. So for Flex gateways, it's quite easy whenever you deploy them in your infrastructure. If you add Redis as a shared storage, configure it for the Flex gateways, then the policies, right, like rate limiting, which support the distributed mode, will work. Same for the CloudHub 2. For the CloudHub 1, it's quite tricky. Runtime fabric or on-premise. If you configure the cluster, then it would be the same as with CloudHub 2. You're able to do it. Policies will respect it. And that's it. I hope that would help you with your installations. Enjoy.